Hey everybody, I'm going to show you how I do my faux turquoise, and I'm going to do this in several parts. So what I've done here is I have just a color I mixed up, and I'm going to be honest, this is just a generic. When I very first started out doing clay, I just ordered some generic clay off of Amazon, and this is not the best brand, but I'm using up the last little bit of it, so I'm just going to get rid of this. And so it's really soft. So what I've done is I put it in the freezer for a few minutes to get it kind of hard, and that makes it a whole lot easier to chop up. And I already chopped it once, and yet you can tell that it's clumping together again, so I'm gonna chop it up again, and I'll just show you some of my past. And this has got a more blue in it. This is more of a blue. See if I can get that to focus. And it's got some rough chips in it and little sparkle in it, and it's got these veins in it, and that's what makes it the faux turquoise. And I'll show you how that goes later. So these are a lighter color. Now this color is going to be a darker color. This has more blue in it, and it has these little veins in it, and to me that's what makes it the turquoise, is those veins. And this is one I made. I put a hole in it, and I also, see if I can get that to focus, did this edging on it. Yeah. So that's the edging, and all I did was use my bronze Sharpie for that. And here's some earlier projects I did. Probably the very first faux turquoise I did, and I just made these little cabs or cabochons. And these have a couple of different colors in them, and I didn't like those as well. And I've sanded these all down and buffed them. These will be little pendants that I'll use. So that's my version of faux turquoise, and I've kind of got some inspiration from several videos I've watched online. I really like watching all these tutorials online and getting some inspiration from people. That was like the very first one I ever did, and I don't really like it. But I have perfected it, so that's why I'm doing the tutorial. And these are the earrings I made. I made some little backs. And of course I drew the bronze on the side there. Anyway, let's get started with this. So I'm going to chop this up a little bit better, and everybody has different ways of doing this, and some people say chop fine, some people say chop all the same, but I like a little variation in mine. So some of my pieces are finer and some of my pieces are bigger, and I kind of want big, medium, and small. And to me, that's what makes it more natural looking, is just all different shapes and all different sizes. And I'm going to just chop this up a little bit better because it's kind of clumped together. And I'm using just a Ziploc baggie because there's going to be paint involved. And you could use wax paper or whatever you want, but I have found that plastic works really well. And all I'm going to do is take some regular old acrylic paint. I'm using Pavement, and it's a real dark gray. Now, the tutorials I've seen use black, but I think that this gray gives it kind of a softer touch. So that's what I'm going to do. And so you literally just take the paint, and you're just going to drizzle it, and you're actually going to do a pretty decent amount of paint. I mean, coat it pretty good. Get it on there. And the next thing you're going to need, which I didn't mention before, is some gloves, because you are going to be working this. So I'm going to put the gloves, and this is totally up to you. I'm going to use these the mica powder in the bronze, the antique bronze. Actually, this is Pearlex in the antique bronze. And you can use a little bit, or you can use a lot. It just depends on how much sparkle you want to be distributed throughout. And when you go to sanding these, you will see that sparkle come through. You won't see it at first, but you will see it eventually. And I kind of want it to look natural, and so I don't want a lot of sparkle, but I want a little sparkle. And so I'm just kind of doing a little, kind of a thin layer on across all of it. And you're just going to take your pieces and coat them really good. And you can try to break them up even better, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to break them up and just kind of get them all mushied in together. And then you're going to let this paint dry. And I have done different varying drying times, and it really doesn't matter. As long as you don't see it wet on there. It does need at least, 2 to 3 hours. And I've even done it overnight. So you can do either way. Because what's going to happen is when you go to sanding these, the paint is going to come off somewhat. So I just get that in there and really mix it up really good. And then you're going to set this to dry. And then once I get done with this and I get my hands to where I can stop the video, we will return with a dried product and our next step. And like I said, different sizes of clumps, bigger, smaller, finer, just however you want. If you want it to look big and chunky, do big chunks. If you want them to all be really, really fine, do really fine. And I find that if it dries a little bit better if you can get them separated out a little bit, like I'm doing. And just let that sit. I'm probably going to do at least 3 to 4 hours on this. We'll see. I'll let you know how long I actually let it dry for. Okay, and we'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and this is our dried clay, and this is the Turquoise project, and I told you I would tell you how long I let it dry for, and that was, I checked it at about 6 hours, and that was still fairly sticky, and so it really needs more than 6 hours, and this has been 22 hours. So I did go ahead and leave it overnight. So 22 hours, and that's what you get. And so my gloves are a mess, and so I don't have any more gloves. I'm gonna go ahead and just wash my hands after this. So this is pretty good and dry. I did go ahead and chop it a little bit more. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take all your little pieces, and they are stuck to the plastic somewhat, but not terribly. Start just molding it together in your hand, and there is just a little bit of paint, but that's okay. I'm a crafter. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. And so what you're doing is you're putting it all back together. As many little pieces as you can get. All of the pieces. Okay, now I have this big glob. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And what you're going to do is you're going to form into a log. So you're going to make this torpedo log, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. And as you're doing that, kind of keep your ends smushed flat. And just keep going and going. And then keep smushing down on the top. Once you have it pretty well together, then we can begin to roll it a little bit. But keep forming it so it gets nice and together. Like I said, you can use gloves on this. Paint will wash off. It's not a big deal. Alright, so now you have your log. It's pretty well together. Start rolling it. And I am making... what I wanted to make was some bigger, much bigger pendants. So that is why I used so much more than I normally make. Keep squishing on the sides. Keep rolling. And depending on what project you're working on, you can make this as big or as little as you want. I am gonna make mine, like I said, make mine bigger. And I'll be back after I wash my hands. Okay, so I've washed my hands. Now now the fun part. I'm gonna start cutting with my blade. Okay, that's our first slice. See all the lines and cracks in it. And from this point, you shape it how you want it. I'm going to go ahead and cut a few more slices just to show you. The variations. Ooh, that one looks really good. Looks good. I really like it. And at this point, you can go ahead and put it on a tile or put it on something that you want to bake it on. And just start shaping it how you want it. And I have developed my own little way of doing things over the last little bit. Really like my trusty razor blade. And you see you have a dark edge, but that is going to sand off, and you do have to do quite a bit of sanding on this project. Or you could take your blade and just chop. You could take it and chop these little edges off, and you see more of the natural stone and the variations in it. I've done it both ways. Okay. Just keep forming and shaping and forming and shaping until you have what you like. And push down a little bit on that. Flatten it out. And see, I'm getting paint all over this. That's going to sand off. This is not the shape I want yet, but I will get there. And to make your top even flatter, just take your roller, roll it out, anyway. I'll come back with a few that I've already shaped up for you and that are ready for the oven. Okay, I'm back. I have made all the turquoise pendants that I'm gonna make. I made 18 beads and I made 6 pendants, and they look pretty rough and dark, but these sand out. If you don't like sanding, this is not the project for you, but luckily I don't mind sanding. I kind of find it nice and soothing, but there will be lots of sanding to come. I made this one with my cutter, and I kind of like the free-form ones better, and this one I made asymmetrical, and with the chopped up sides I made beads, and so all this is going to make some really nice necklaces. I'll be back. Okay, here I'm back with my finished product, and I went ahead and sanded a few, or actually one. This little one that I made with a cutter, and I wanted to show you what it did. It made this nice little fissure crack, which I think is really cool. And this is sanded, the first sanding. Actually, yeah, I haven't done all the smoothing on it yet. I just sanded, all I did was, and I have the Sculpey sanding. This is my sanding setup. And the Sculpey wet dry, do not try to use regular sandpaper, I found that out. These come in different sizes. You start out with the lowest, 400, and this is my setup. I use this little pan with water in it, 600, and I usually stack them up, 400, 600, 800, and 1,000, and that's as high as I go, but you can go, there's other companies that sell some that go way up there. And that's how I sand. And here's a bead that I sanded. It's really pretty. Let's see if I can get it to focus. And I did go ahead and go up to 1,000 on this one, and I buffed it. So here's here's one not sanded, and here's one sanded. Pretty. And here's one sanded, and here's one not sanded. And I'm not going to bore you with all the sanding, but with the beads, oh, they're very tricky. So I take the I'll just show you real quick. 400, I start out with that, and I just start kind of rolling it around, getting that off there, and dipping it in my water every now and then. So this one you have to do by your hand. Now this one, however, it's nice and flat. What I will do with that one is I'll put it down in the water, and I'll start going back and forth like that. And hopefully I'll have another follow-up video sometime with what these look like as the finished product on necklaces. Okay, thanks guys.